All right, everybody, welcome back to the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. Jason Fernandez here with what I consider. I've actually been looking forward to this interview because I don't think this is something that is talked about a lot. I'm here with Jeremy Augusta. Jeremy Augusta runs and is the founder of Barbell Jobs. And if you haven't seen that, it is essentially just a kind of a headhunting platform. I guess on the regular side of the house would be like ZipRecruiter, kind of like where you can submit a job.
Yeah, it's a dedicated job board for people like you and me.
Yeah, so for fitness professionals. And the reason I wanted to bring Jeremy on the show is because I think that this topic and the idea of a resume is not something that's on a lot of people's minds in the CrossFit community. But before we get into that, just give you a brief intro here, Jeremy. So Jeremy, prior Army, owns Burton County Strength Club as well as American Strength Club. And did 4 years in the Army, 6 years in the Coast Guard, and then now is just doing fitness like the rest of us, man.
Yeah, just lifting heavy shit and hustling to make $1.
Cool. So, I mean, let's just dive right in. So how did Barbell Jobs come about? Actually, first tell everybody what it is.
All right. Well, barbelljobs.com is a job board for macro gyms, for CrossFit affiliates, and the fitness industry in general. 90% of all the job postings, we have about 340 right now, are all CrossFit gyms.
Okay. And then, so how did this come about? Like, how does one decide, like, hey, I'm just going to make a job board because that's pretty outside the box. Like most people are like, I'm going to do programming, I'm going to do supplements. And you're like, no, I'm going to create a job board.
Well, I opened my first location and it was doing really well. And so I thought, like a lot of people think in that point, that, well, I need to open a second one. That's how I make more money. So I started to, I had everything in place to open a second facility in another city. I had funding for the equipment. I had the location. What I didn't have was someone to run it. Because at this time, I was coaching 8-9 classes a day. So I obviously couldn't go run it.
But that's no problem, lot, dude. That's a lot of classes.
It is a lot of classes. That was a lot of hustle back then. So I couldn't run it. And I figured it probably wouldn't be too hard to find someone to give a job to. Couldn't find no members who would want to do it because I was in the mind frame of you create coaches for members back then, which now I know is not the correct way to do things. But so I started posting in the affiliate owners group and like CrossFit competition groups, anything I could find, trying to find coaches. Didn't find a damn one. And I started getting pissed off thinking, well, how am I going to open this facility if there's no centralized way to find a coach? And being the entrepreneur I am, I realized if I'm having this issue, everyone else has to be having this issue as well.
Now, in this time, are you getting interviews with just candidates that you don't like, or you're just not getting anything? Like
nobody. I'm getting nobody.
Okay.
Nothing. I had one guy from like Colorado message me, and he wanted me to pay for his move and all that. I'm like, no. It's like, hi, I would like your job. Please send me $8,000 to move there.
Okay. And then, so when did you actually start Barbell Jobs? When did that start?
It started just over 2 years ago. I looked for probably 6 months trying to find a coach. And I started thinking about there's got to be a better way. Someone's got to be doing this somewhere. And it just didn't happen. Wasn't a thing. So I decided that I would make it myself. Created Barbell Jobs, and which I have no experience with programming on computers or anything of that. So that was a good opportunity to self-learn some things.
Yep.
And I just rolled with it. I put it out there and I started marketing it, messaging. Every time I saw someone post, hey, I'm looking for a coach, I'd get a hold and say, listen, I can help you with this. I know your life sucks trying to figure this out. I've done the work. I can do the work. And it's grown from there.
Do you know roughly how many coaches you've placed since you started?
I don't have information on the coaches I've placed because to get that information, I rely on the gym owner to come back and voluntarily give the information,
Got it.
which to have them go back, log in a system, fill out a survey just isn't happening. But I do know that I have a 60% rate of people who have posted jobs to become returning customers for when they need to post more jobs.
That's cool. So it sounds like you need to get a little bit more in the metrics so you can see like what's the length of employment with those employers and all that stuff. But yeah, I can imagine being a gym owner myself. At some point, you're just like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, I'll figure out a better way for that.
Yeah.
But right now, I just got to rely on the gym owner to decide I've got time. I should go back and fill out the survey.
Cool. So you brought up something that was interesting, and this is really kind of we could go for a while on this. So you said something that was very contrary to what probably everybody that we've had on the show has said, which I'm totally open to and don't even necessarily disagree with you on, which is the internal versus external hire. And the vast majority of the CrossFit community, we're romantic about our own stuff, right? Like, almost to a fault where, like, oh, we just want to take from inside and the members. And the longer I do this, I do think there is the opportunity to do both, but I think people are so resistant to taking people externally. And I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing.
Well, the issue is, so say you've been working out with someone for 3-4 years, doing squats next to them, doing friend next to them. You know this person intimately. He's your buddy. You drink at his house. So now all of a sudden he's a coach. Is he going to command the same kind of respect from you than someone that is a professional coach who is brought in based on their qualifications? It's not going to happen. It's, I mean, sometimes it can, but it's really not the case anymore, especially for people who, if you have a hobby gym and you just, you're working your ass off and you just need someone to cover a couple classes, that's one thing. But if you're a professional gym owner, if this is your livelihood, if you want to have professional coaches, you're not going to get them from the people who are already doing that or the people who are already in your gym. And most of those people have jobs anyway. Now, on Barbell Jobs, we have well over 1,000 profiles of professional coaches, people who their only job, the only thing they want to do with their life is coach, not open a gym and be your competition, not work part-time. Well, there's a lot of those. But these are people who this is their livelihood. This is their profession. And so for someone who does that, to be comparable to someone who works out 3-4 times a week, an hour a day with their buddies and then drinks after, it's not the same thing.
No, I agree with you, and I couldn't agree with you more. I've always told people that the best gyms have coaches who that's all they do. Mm-hmm. Now, and again, whether they get paid to do that or not, like there's a ton of different scenarios out there, and most of which I disagree with because there's a lot of really good unpaid coaches out there.
Yeah,
that's a separate conversation. But I agree. If you're going to have the best coaches, if you're going to have the best service, and forget coaching, right? Best customer service, best business. Like you have to have people there who it is their job to show up at whatever time that is at 7 a.m. and work until 7 p.m. at night. And I just don't know there's a way to kind of break through and have a thriving business without that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building something that's going to last long after you got to have people who hone their craft, not people who want to discount on their membership. There's a big difference in the quality that you get.
Yeah, it also can present, in my experience, some leadership hurdles that you're going to have to navigate. So, luckily I was kind of force-fed leadership as I'm sure you were in the military, but even sometimes then you're going to come up against some scenarios that you're not probably equipped for, which is like my best friend now works for me, and that's going to create some problems. We had Doug Zakaris and Chris Spieler on the show. That show was on yesterday. This will probably air in a week or so. but they're probably one of the anomalies where they've been friends for 11 years and Doug works for Chris. But that's not the norm. I've seen a lot of relationships, both, significant others and friendships broken up by employment scenarios.
Well, even going back to the military, to give a really good example, when I was in the Coast Guard, I was a E4. We had our E4 mafia. We ran around. We had all our drinking buddies. One of the guys made E5, and all of a sudden he thinks he's big shit. And he's, telling us what to do. And everyone's like just looking at him, laughing at him when he tried to give us orders because, listen, we remember seeing you naked on a bar dancing. You're not telling me to do shit.
That allegedly happened. Everybody, guys in the Army don't do that.
No, that was Coast Guard.
That's one of those things where, like, that definitely has to be if you're going to do that, it has to be approached very carefully. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is because it's a casual relationship, the agreement is very casual as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to talk about a little bit is, so you've seen a ton of applications come through, but what are some of the pros that you've seen from people that are hiring externally? So literally I was on a phone call yesterday. I had an affiliate, a guy who's actually a head coach at an affiliate who is thinking about buying the affiliate out, but he was calling me, asking me about, he was super afraid of doing an external hire. And my answer was like, hey, hire him, dude. And if you don't like him, fire him. It's so much easier to get rid of somebody that's not your friend.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fire your drinking buddy or the guy that you barbecue with, that's so much, because then you're going to screw up your friendship too.
Yeah. So do you see people starting to open up more to that? Like, I'm just not in that world of seeing what other affiliates are and who's hiring where. I mean, I'm a little bit, but you probably see way more of it than I do.
Well, to give you an example, I have received, I'm looking at my phone real quick.
Yep.
82 applications today for a position that I'm helping a affiliate owner fill.
For one position? One
position.
Damn, that's a lot.
That is a lot. And 50% of these, at least, who are applying for these positions have not followed the instructions on the job posting. So they're not even getting considered. They're not getting a message back. They're being deleted.
Okay, so which leads me to my next thing. So if you talk to any of my staff, I am notorious for kind of hounding them about the fact that a resume is still a thing.
Absolutely.
So this goes into what you just talked about. What is it? What are employers looking for? And then the second question to that is, people who are applying jobs, what should they be doing when they apply for jobs?
All right. So obviously resume is important, but when you're sitting here like I am, who's looking through over 80 applications, resumes tend to bleed together, especially in our industry, because the big certifications are always the CrossFit ones.
Yeah.
What really stands out, well, one, you need to have a well-presented resume, but the difference maker that is really going to determine if you get a job or not, or at least the interview, is your cover letter. The cover letter is the most important factor because that's the first thing that they see. It's either going to be generic and they're going to discard it, or you're going to look at it and see that this person has been to the gym website. They have looked at what the core values of that gym are. They've explained how they fit into this community and can be an asset to this community. And then those are the people who get the jobs, because that shows that people aren't just clicking apply. It shows that they're seeing something, taking interest, going to the website, doing their homework before they put in the application.
Which for a lot of people you would think would be a no-brainer, but
you would think,
but it's not. Like, I can't, over the years I've had tons of people come to me and say, I want to coach. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what's your schedule like? And they're like, well, I work. And then it gets it down to the point where, like, they can't really coach. It's just like, it's a good thought, but you haven't put any thought into actually what this entails, what it is that we're looking for. So when I get on the phone with people, the first thing I tell them, and I'm pretty candid about it, is like, this has to be valuable for me, and I need you to understand that. And I don't think a lot of coaches approach it from that standpoint of like, how can I be valuable to you? So
no, you're absolutely right. I've done quite a few articles on this and blog posts. You're not the owner isn't hiring a person. They're either hiring an asset or a liability.
Correct.
So they need to hire someone who is going to elevate the facility as a whole. And they've got to have certain skills. One, they have to know how to sell. Whether they sell or not, you're constantly selling no matter what you do in life. And that's a skill that you have to have. If you want to be a coach and you want to make real money and do personal training to make that money, you have to sell yourself on the to the people for the personal training. You have to sell the facility to the people that you know. You have to sell the way you coach to people. So everything is about sales. And if someone has those skills, they're coming on as an asset. They're going to be important. They're going to have a great career. They're going to progress throughout the industry, reach great heights. If they don't have certain skills, they just want to coach and nothing else, they're a liability. And nobody needs a liability.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that people miss is that like people want to make, whatever money, and we can talk about salaries in a minute, but they want to make 40 grand to coach 20 classes a month. And,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, that's not a thing. Like that is just not a thing at all. Like you're going to have to do a lot of other things. And I think people forget how much. So for instance, I have a friend who owns a traditional kind of gym where like primarily what they do is personal training. And she owns this thing, and she does anywhere between 10 to 12 personal training sessions a day.
Wow.
Yeah. She hustles though. Like she's a stud, but that's what she told me. She's like, people want to come in and they think personal training is great, but they don't want to work. They're not going to get up at 4:30 and they're not going to book 10 clients in one day. And so they don't last. It's hard.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, no, she's an outlier, but I think even if you were to do like just a slightly milder version of that, which is like, hey, if you want to work and earn a living, you're going to have to work to earn a living.
Yeah.
And I think people just misunderstand like what the coaching life is like. And you can tell me what you think, but I think people misunderstand it because they're in the gym for 2 hours a day and they see the coach and they're like, oh, this is amazing. I could do this. I'm like, yeah, but I was here for 15 hours today. This is all you saw of the 15 hours that I did. So what in your experience, like on average, what are people hiring full-time coaches for?
You mean the reason or the payments?
Payment. Yeah.
That is a very loaded question because I recently, and I've got an article on barbelljobs.com. I've broken pay down based off the different regions of the country and metro areas.
Okay.
There's a huge difference from, like Kansas City, which I'm near, to, 20 miles out of it.
Okay.
So that's it's kind of hard to say what they're hiring for.
Okay.
Average pay for a career CrossFit coach is, give me a second to pull it up on my phone and I can tell you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just curious because, I'm always thinking about hiring and doing stuff like that. And there's a million different ways to do that, but it also depends on, from a business standpoint, like what can you afford?
Well, let's use you for an example. Where are you located?
Virginia Beach.
Okay. Give me 1 second to pull this up and I'll give you the information for your area. That way we can get specific. Sorry, it's taking me a second.
No, you're good.
Here we are. $18 per class coached for the your general area,
Okay.
not your city or your state, but in that part of the country.
Okay. And then what part of the country does that entail?
That's
Like mid-Atlantic?
southeast. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so $18 an hour, but that's actually coaching hours, right?
Yes.
And then, so
Yeah,
then
that
obviously,
doesn't count admin work, personal
yeah.
training.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right.
this is based off of what the jobs are posted on Barbell Jobs,
Got it.
and their
Okay.
coaches are paid.
All right. So second question with regard to that is like, what are outside of the cover letter, like just not having a cover letter, or just kind of not doing any homework? What are some of the biggest mistakes people make with regard to resumes?
Non-important information being on there. So, like I saw one today, someone's applying for a ownership position that we have, where someone is selling their gym, and 90% of their resume was about the fast food work they did when they were a kid. It's not pertinent information. If it doesn't relate directly to the job and how you can excel at it, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be on the resume.
Got it.
You know, and like for people like me and you who are in the military, we don't need to put on that we were FEMA certified or whatever, you know.
I had to take like a class on that. So for somebody to basically teach me how to decipher things that I did in the military to
Yep.
rephrase them so that they were relevant to jobs that I would potentially apply for.
I do that with the veterans all the time for free. So like if I see someone post a profile, I look at every profile that gets posted so I can keep someone in mind. And whenever I see that they check that they were a veteran, I look over their profile, and if it looks like crap, I just call them and say, "Listen, this is what we got to do for
Got it.
you." No one cares that it took you 8 years to get your first good conduct.
No, if you've been around, you know that's not that good anyway.
No, but you had fun though getting there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you had a good time. The other thing that I'm curious about is like, do gym owners reach out to you to potentially get advice about what they should be hiring for?
Not real often. A lot of gym owners are their posts are simply for they need to have extra coaches. But as this progresses and more gym owners are learning the benefit of hiring professional coaches, I am starting to get some calls with people asking, well, these are the admin duties that go along with it. What should I actually pay this person? How should I pay them?
Got it. And then but you're not. So for me, like, so I'm thinking about it from my standpoint. It's like usually I have coaches, but the first thing I kind of outsourced was a little bit of coaching, but then it was a lot more admin work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like social media skills, and because I could coach, and for a while I'm thinking about the typical lifespan of an affiliate owner. So first you do everything.
Yep.
And you're generally the best coach, so it's usually best for you to be on the floor at the beginning. So then what you probably should do is you probably should hire out for admin skills that you either can't do due to time constraints or just don't want to do, like scheduling, payroll, cleaning, stuff like that. Do you see more people looking for that these days, or it just all coaching?
It's mostly coaching. It's mostly coaching and management roles. People aren't posting too much about the other roles yet, which hopefully they will start to, because it can be a giant benefit for them.
Yeah, it's huge. If you have multiple skill sets, then you can almost, I wouldn't say you could write your own check, but if you can wear a lot of hats in the gym, again, going back to, I'm thinking about this selfishly. So if somebody wanted a job at my gyms,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to do a lot of things. Like you need to be able to work on spreadsheets. You need to be able to get on the phone and make sales calls. You need to be able to do sales consults. You need to be able to do all of that stuff. That might not be your primary role, but if I can plug you in any one of those spots when I need to on a whim because something comes up, then you're an asset to the team.
Well, I'm working with some of the software vendors in our space who are creating super user certifications.
Okay.
So like to give push press a plug. For coaches, they're creating a super user certification for CrossFit coaches on push press.
Okay.
So that way, when someone like you, who has all these other duties that they want them to do, you can look on their resume or at their profile on Barbell Jobs and see that if your billing platform or your client management platform is push press, here's someone who's invested time and energy to become intimately familiar with that software program.
I mean, that would be a huge benefit because, you don't want, if somebody's good on Wodify, but maybe you use Zen Planner, that can be a huge transition and could probably be a massive pain point for you.
Yeah. So, and that's why I reach out to these different software vendors, because for exactly like you said, if you got someone coming into your facility, you don't know what they use. And, they may have all the experience in the world on Wodify or Zen Planner, but if you use push press, you can look through and you can find someone who is intimately familiar with that software, who's been through training specifically.
100%. It would make your life easier from an employer standpoint. Okay. And then typically how long do jobs stay on the job board? Like how long, if somebody posts a job and that you have applications, like are you filling those pretty quick? I mean, it sounds like you have no shortage of applicants.
No. There's plenty of applicants, and I spend a ton of money on marketing so coaches see that the jobs are there. So like if you were to post a job, it's going to be marketed on Facebook, up to 20 Facebook groups, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, Google Jobs picks it up, and job alerts. And on top of that, if you spend $85 to post a job, a large chunk of that's going actually into social media marketing for your position in your local area.
Got it. Okay.
So they get applications pretty quick, depending on where they are geographically. So
go ahead.
The job posting is for 30 days or 3 months.
Okay.
And a lot of gyms are always looking for coaches. So they may fill a position in the first week or two, but they tend to leave them up.
In the event that one doesn't work out.
Well, a lot of gyms are just always looking for good coaches. So if you are in that first stage and you're trying to break out of it where you're doing everything, you can put a job posting up, one job posting, and you're looking for 5 coaches. You post one posting, you can leave it up for 3 months to get as many as you can.
That's fair. So for somebody what are some things that you are like absolute must if you're like looking for a job coaching at a CrossFit gym when you're putting this resume out? Like what are some of the just real shit hot applicants that you've seen?
People with content creation skills.
Ooh.
If you're good at creating content, you're going to be able to write your own paycheck right now.
I would absolutely agree with that, but that's not something I would have thought of. But yes.
Yeah, think about how much do we invest in marketing our facilities across different platforms? Making our YouTube videos, making those cool Instagram posts that get someone to click on the link in bio to go to the gym website and get someone in.
Do those jobs typically, I'm imagining those have to be worth a little bit more.
Those are typically a head coach position or a gym manager position.
Got it.
But if you have the skills to create content, you can be a shitty coach and still make a lot of money.
Well, so the way I would like to describe that is that skill set, if you're good at it, is massively ROI positive. So if you can create content and know how to do actual marketing, which is the skill of putting content in front of people's eyeballs, not necessarily just creating content, but understanding how Facebook ads work and all of that stuff, that has massive implications on the bottom line. Like you can just print money for a gym owner if that's a really good skill set for you.
Well,
I've got to coach at all. Like you can just run social media.
Well, yeah, I've got a guy who his degree is in marketing, but he wants to work for CrossFit gyms. So he's getting his L1 for his secondary role to be as a coach, so he can focus on what he's really good at, which is marketing for the gyms.
And I would imagine that way he's just a filler coach. So he's primarily doing social media stuff, and he's just backfilling something probably like 15 to 20 hours a month.
Yeah,
Which is a good backfill number, right? If you're just somebody who just kind of like plug and play, 20 is a pretty sweet number, because that means you're probably filling in some gaps that are some pain points for people.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the gym owner money, make your career, further on your career, and when a coach needs some time off, just go and coach for him.
And then on this job, like, how much are you just the connector, or is there some kind of back and forth in there? Like, are there negotiations happening like within Barbell Jobs, or do you just do the handoff and then you're done?
Typically, what happens mostly is they post the position and I'm out of the loop. But we also have a headhunting service, which the gyms I'm trying to help sell right now, they took advantage of that. And so what with that is I find the people for them. Like, I'm working on I've been spending my day today working for one gym in Houston. We're doing phone interviews Friday. We've got over 100 applications for his position, which is, taking over the positions. Basically, it's an entrepreneur who has too much on his plate and something's got to come off, but he loves his gym. So I'm doing all the screening for this one. We've got over 100 applications, and this has only been on the website since Saturday.
Okay.
So for him, I'm going through all these individually. I'm doing 2 rounds of interviews, and then I'm going to be presenting him with the 5 best candidates for him to interview. So instead of him spending, I've worked at least 8 hours today on this. He invested a little bit of money, and he doesn't have to do it until the very end.
I mean, at some point, that's the smart thing. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So is he just removing himself as kind of the head coach, or is he selling his business?
So he's selling his business.
Okay.
And the way this is really interesting, and a lot of people that I've been talking to, actually everyone that I've talked to and suggested this to, are going this route. So we're setting people up. In his case specifically, he's an entrepreneur. He has too much on his plate. He's not a coach.
He doesn't coach at all.
Well, he doesn't enjoy it.
Got it.
He enjoys business.
Understood.
And so he wants to focus on his other businesses. He's got to get something off his plate. It's this gym. And he's like, well, how much should I sell it for? And we discussed that. But instead of a cash up front, what we're doing is there's going to be a 1-year transition for whoever steps in this role. And during this transition, this person is going to be working with a business mentor, whether it's one of Chris Cooper guys or Stewart's, whoever. We'll figure it out based off of personalities.
Okay.
If they're a dick, then we're going with Stewart. If they're a nice guy, we're going with Chris. You laugh, but that's how it needs to work.
I mean, I get it. Like, I understand. Like, that's why I laughed when you said it.
So, and during this year, there's going to be certain milestones that this coach has to achieve. So 2 months in, working with their mentor, they have to say, for example, they have to increase revenue by 5%. Once they do that, they take 10% ownership at that point. Then, okay, a month or 2 months later, they have another milestone that their mentor has worked with them to knock off. And then they take another 10, 20% ownership until the very end when they get 100% ownership. And at that point, there will be a payment made over the course of X amount of time, a small payment of the money to the gym owner for the sale price, or to the current owner of the sale price.
So that brings up
coaches who want to be gym owners don't have 80, 200 grand, whatever it is, to put up.
I mean, shit, even people who want to be gym owners probably don't have. I mean, like, that's a lot of money.
So, and this is the way that works out well for everybody. So if we bring someone in and they keep missing their milestones, then it is put in the contract, well, you tried, thanks for coming, you're leaving, and now we move on to someone else.
That actually brings up a good point, because I've had this conversation. So I've done an acquisition, and I've had people, and I've talked to a lot of people about acquisitions of other gyms. I didn't know that was something you guys did, but it does bring up a good point. And I'm probably intimately familiar with at least 20 sales, and the vast majority of them, I would give you a ballpark number and you can tell me whether you agree. If it was sold for 50K or less, it's not an actual sale of a business, in my opinion. It's a sale of assets. I just bought your equipment and I assumed your liabilities and stuff like that. So when people say they sold the business, I don't know that that's technically true. And the other one is when you look at the number and somebody says that they just wanted to get out of the business. They were just tired. I'm like, what you just said is you're going out of business, which it is what it is. That's not me poking anybody in the eye. That's just me simply kind of pulling back the curtain for people who are going to run a business, that is a real thing. Like, you did not sell a business. You sold all of your stuff because it was going under. Right.
A lot of times. Yeah.
So, and that number is about 50K. If you sell for 50K, you just did that. Anything higher than that, it was probably something was profitable. But what I thought was interesting, and I learned this from a business mentor of mine who has nothing to do with fitness. They were just talking about acquisitions and just M&A in general. And what he was kind of expressing to me was kind of what the process is for the acquisition. And he said, listen, he goes, from both people want to win here, but you can tee this up where both people can win. The seller generally wants a number. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and he put it in terms of kind of like real estate. It's like the seller really wants a very specific number. The buyer has a little bit more wiggle room in that number, but what the buyer wants is terms. They want the terms to work out in their favor. Yep. And that's what I was trying to tell somebody recently. It's like, listen, first you have to agree of can you guys even get remotely close to the same number that you're both thinking, and that should be done, in my opinion, by a third party who's going to do a evaluation on the business. But from there, then it's kind of, in my opinion, I think it's in the buyer's court, because once you've kind of given the seller the number that they want, now, in my opinion, you kind of have some leverage there to create terms that are in your best interest, whether it's over 5 years or 6 years, you do percentage buyout and all that stuff. But I think people are just like, what's the number? What's the number? I'm like, well, there's a lot of wiggle room here. Like, you can have maybe a little bit higher number on terms that work far better for you in the short term. I don't know if you guys have dealt with any of that, but do you guys recommend that, or how many different ways have you seen that done?
Well, it's been done a few different ways, but most of them are following basically the template that I just described to you.
Okay. Just a long-term buyout with the stipulations that the owner will basically get to keep the business if that buyer falls through.
If they don't work with if you're working with Chris Cooper and he tells you exactly what to do, you're going to be profitable. So if this person is not being profitable, then they're not working with their mentor, doing the things they're not supposed to do. And that's the person we should get out of that position anyway.
Yeah.
So for everyone, that's a real win, because by the time you give away someone takes over your business, if you're the seller, you know that this person has a year of training with someone whose only job is to make businesses profitable, and you can walk away feeling pretty good.
And I think all of this, somebody who's listening to this might be like, why are you guys talking about selling business when I thought this was about jobs? But I think if we zoom out here a little bit to kind of a 30,000 foot level, they are absolutely intertwined because of this, right? So there's a really interesting book called Built to Sell. And the whole concept of that book is, regardless of whether or not you want to sell your business, you should be able to sell it.
Yes, that's a fantastic book too. Everyone should read it.
Yeah, if you cannot sell it, then it's not a viable business. And one of the things that makes a business sellable, going back to what you do, is, does it have full-time employees? Mm-hmm. Right? So this is kind of a give and take on both sides. From a coaching standpoint, you need to be building a resume that doesn't just simply state, I like CrossFit. It needs to add value to the business. It needs to be ROI positive. You need to be able to, educate, inspire, and entertain the athletes on the floor, but you also need to help bring in and clean up the back end administrative piece and have some skill sets that would lend themselves to basically paying for your salary, right?
Yep.
So if you're going to pay me whatever it is, a base salary of $30K, we'll call it, that's $2,500 a month. If that's what I'm going to get paid, then from an employee standpoint, it is now my job to increase revenue by $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah. So if I bring a coach on and I pay them $2,500 a month, they have to be worth more and help me generate more than $2,500 a month.
Yeah,
They
I was
have
just
to
giving a
be an
baseline
asset.
level number, saying, be like, hey, you should recoup that. You can't just take a slice out of, and I don't know that that's what a lot of coaches understand, is that from a business standpoint, you can't just walk into the business and take a slice out of the pie without making the pie bigger.
Yeah. And that's that has become something that I'm trying desperately hard to educate coaches on. Because there's so many people they want to be professional coaches. This is what they want to do for a living. They don't even want to be gym owners. They just want to coach. They enjoy coaching. And so I'm trying to teach these people how you can do that successfully and, enjoy your life and be comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's, continue to build a resume, whether that's, I tell coaches, I'm like, you should get every possible continuing education piece you get. Like you should get certifications that are really outside the realm of CrossFit, whether it's, the RKC, whether it's CSCS, whether it's, USAW, whether it's Exos, OPEX, all of that. I think everybody should be pursuing all of those. In addition to, if you don't have your undergrad or master's or something like that, you should be pursuing those things too. Like those are the things that allow you leverage from a standpoint of like being first in line when a really good job does come up.
Well, they also make a difference on what you can be paid. I recently did another blog post on how all of those can transfer into basically a base salary based off of experience and education. And so every certification you have, and a lot of coaches are starting to adopt this now, I've been finding out, in terms of how they hire. So the more certification experience you have, the more money you're going to make. So if you're a student of your industry and those certifications show that, that's going to be more money that you're going to be able to bring, home with you to take care of your family.
And I agree. And I think this brings up a conversation that I have pretty frequently. And people are like, well, I think CrossFit is shrinking. It's definitely not. Like the micro gym industry is not shrinking. It's growing.
Yeah, still at a very fast pace.
And I don't think people understand that because they might see the rate of CrossFit gyms in United States start to taper off a little bit, but like micro gyms in general, right? So there are gyms that are doing other things than CrossFit that need professionals. And anybody who's been in a leadership position or who owns a business knows that there is a shortage of good help, like just straight up. So if you can be good help, like you can get employed. Now you probably might have to move in some instances, but like if you're good, you can get work.
Yes. And there's a lot of people who are moving cross country for some really good jobs at some really fantastic facilities. That's almost, I would say, the majority of what's happening is people are hiring from outside their local area and bringing coaches in.
Anecdotally, do you find that those work out better?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing else to add to that. Yeah, it absolutely works out better.
That's super interesting.
Someone's not going to move 1,000 miles and do a shit job for you.
That's a good point.
If someone's going to pack up their family and go that far for your opportunity, they're going to do their damnedest to make the most of it.
That's actually a really good point.
I mean, if they fail at it, well, they're screwed. They're in a place that they've got nothing, nobody, and they're basically an island in this area now to themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't think it's something that people consider enough because everybody, I get the allure of hiring within, and I'm not even saying you shouldn't do it, but I do think, so I look at it I'm always looking at it through my lens and trying to look at it through other people's lens. Like I'm always trying to think there should be two tracks. There should be the track for the athletes that are great members that I love, that just are passionate about it, and they want to start down the journey of coaching. And I think that path is much longer, right? And then the other path is, I need good help and I need it right now, which means Bob, who really loves CrossFit and has been here 6 months, is not the right guy.
Right.
So I need to come outside of the fold and bring people in, and I think some of the arguments against that, quite frankly, are just silly. Because, the counter argument to that is, well, they don't know the community and, they haven't been in the gym. And I'm like, listen, man, like, we all know that every CrossFit gym is the same. The people are the same, different faces, different color, different heights and sizes. But a good coach will fit in 2 days. Like, they'll have figured out the lay of the land. They'll know who the queen bee of the members are. Like, they're going to know all that stuff within 2 days. And good coaches know how to do that.
Well, and if they come in from outside, they also don't come in with any bias towards any members or any kind of programming. Because, believe it or not, CrossFit gyms end up with clickies, click type members, so like every class has their cliques. And you bring someone in from the outside and they've never been a part of any clique, which makes a bigger difference than people really think about or, would consider.
I also think there is some significant value to just having that separation, where that separation of professional versus personal, and you just don't have that personal kind of sticking point between, well, you were a member and now you're here and now I don't want to listen to you.
Which is basically the same reason why officers and enlisted aren't supposed to fraternize.
Yeah.
You're keeping that separation.
Yeah, because that can be challenging too, which is, I've been in situations like that as a JO, where you're doing things where you're working super close quarters for long periods of time, and those lines can be blurred. And from a leadership standpoint, like, you have to manage that very carefully, because I do want to be tight with my guys and I do want to take care of them. But at the same time, I'm the boss and I'm going to have to tell you or put you in line at some point. And we both have to acknowledge that is the relationship, and figure out how to make sure that we understand that, like, this is where one relationship ends and this is where the other one begins.
When I brought on my first coach, she was a member, and I had a situation where she started coaching and some of the guys started giving her a hard time. Not because she was a female, but just because she was a member that they knew and they were trying to push her buttons and screw with her. And one of my members, I love the guy to death. He's a great person, but I felt he crossed the line, and I ended up basically in a screaming match with this guy in the middle of a class, throwing him out, telling him to never come back for disrespecting my coach. And we ended up, patching everything up, apologizing on both ends. But that's, if I would have brought in another coach who he had never known, that he just simply knows based off of credentials and their leadership position, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. I just think that there's, and again, everybody likes to think that CrossFit is special, but it's not. Like, people do this in the regular world every day. You bring in an outside manager who comes in and does a really good job, or they do a terrible job and you get rid of them. And I think the big fear from most gym owners is, what if it doesn't work out? To which my reply is, so what? Like, what does it matter if it doesn't work out? What if it does work out? Like, if you have the ability to let this person go and learn something in the process, like, you're still going to win, and you're probably not in any more painful of a scenario than you are right now.
Yeah. Worst case scenario is some of your classes got covered.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I know you're busy, man. Where can people find you?
Barbelljobs.com, Instagram at barbelljobs, which I post probably 8 times a day, different job positions that are available, which is also on Facebook at Barbell Jobs. So that's where I always put my articles, which lead back to the website, the job postings. There's a ton of posts. If you follow my social media, you're going to see jobs from all over the world all the time.
Okay. And then any last advice that you would have, either for employers or employees, with regard to fitness jobs in general?
Yeah. A lot of employers are making the mistake of, when they put out a post for a job opening, it's almost like they are doing someone a favor by putting out jobs. What people don't realize, if you're trying to attract the best quality coaches, you got to be the best quality employer and put out the best quality information. So your job posting is an application to get the best applicants to apply to you. It's not, here's my job, come fill it, come work for me. It's, why would they want to work for you? What are you offering that other gyms do not? Give information that someone's going to see, and the best people who are, have the highest qualifications and the best fit for you is going to see, and it's going to attract them.
From a selfish standpoint, what would some of those things be?
Information about your community. So if you guys, okay, so my gym, we like to go play paintball a lot.
Okay.
We do that every month or so. And so that's something that you can put on there that gives you a feel of the community. So if someone is looking for a job and they see something that says $18 per class, there's another one, $18 per class, there's one $18 per class on the second Saturday of each month. We like to get together, have a beer, play paintball, and spend some time as a community. Well, even that little bit of information is just going to make you more attractive.
Do you recommend people put different job incentives, whether it's health benefits or retirement benefits on there too? I know not most gyms probably can't afford that, but obviously if you could, I would imagine that would be.
Dude, that has been happening a lot more. A lot of gym owners who do this not because they enjoy CrossFit, but because they know what the hell they're doing, they want to run a good business, are offering incentives like that. And man, they get coaches from all over the country fighting for those.
I would imagine. I mean, if I was in the business of coaching, like that's probably where I'm going to want to go first.
I mean, there's been a few, like there's one, there's a guy, CrossFit, Palm Beach in Jupiter, Florida. They're always hiring coaches, and not because they are needing or they have a high churn rate. They actually, like, coaches never leave that place. They're just growing at that speed, and they offer incentives like that. Man, there's been a lot of times where I've had to look at my wife and be like, I'm thinking about moving to Florida just to apply for this job. Dude, there are some seriously big money positions for a professional coach. I have had at least 6 that start out right near 6 figures.
That was what I was going to ask you. What was the highest paid one that you've seen so far?
The highest paid started out at $99,000 a year. Then there's others who are right around the area, and then below and that's like base pay, not this is your potential. It's like, you come here, this is what you're going to make. You get X retirement, you get X amount of days off, you get X amount of continuing education reimbursement. And those guys, they know what they're doing. They're attracting the best coaches in the world.
Yeah, I would imagine
they're investing in their staff.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's a real short list for those jobs.
There are.
Yeah.
But that's the way to really grow, is investing and taking care of your staff.
Yeah.
Because
I would agree. That's a whole different discussion about how, building a business that has revenue to support that, which I think we should all be trying to do. But yeah, that's, for me, that's always been the goal, is like, I want to pay coaches really well so that they can be happy and I can be happy and the members can be happy. And that way it's the best hour of everybody's day. So,
well, if you put the coaches first, the coaches will take care of the members.
Listen, man, that's part of being the best hour of everybody's day. And I think that's the key. So I think big takeaway here, guys, is always be building a resume. Do your homework when you're applying for a job. Gym owners, don't just feel like you're giving people a favor by letting them work for you. Like, it should be beneficial for the employee as well as the employer. Like, that's a mutually beneficial relationship. And, keep pushing, make it the best hour of people's days, and, always work on that continuing education. Jeremy, I appreciate your time, brother. This was fun.
This was fun. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. We will see you guys next time. And if you guys need a job, look on barbelljobs.com. All right. See ya.
Improving your life or achieving your goals can sometimes feel like climbing a mountain. On the Tiny Leaps, Big Changes podcast, host Greg Clunis gives practical tips and advice to help you build momentum towards accomplishing the seemingly impossible. Each episode provides research-based strategies or firsthand experiences on topics like mental health, fitness, nutrition, finances, career, and relationships. You can listen to the Tiny Leaps Big Changes podcast on Spotify or wherever else you listen to your favorite podcast. Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, one more time, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast and send us any feedback you have to @besthouroftheirday on Instagram and besthouroftheirday@gmail.com if you want to shoot us an email. We appreciate you. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.